Thank you for tuning in to the Invest Charlotte Leadership Summit. You're about to watch panel number 3, Charlotte 2030. What's in store for Charlotte's real estate over the second half of the decade and how industry leaders are taking action. Be sure to like and follow for more content from the top business and thought leaders. Enjoy.
So as she said, I'm Bobbi Jo Lazarus. I am a tax partner with Elliott Davis. And I would say that as fascinating as the tax world is right now, if anyone is following what's happening in DC, what I really love about what I do is I get to work with real estate developers and really get into talking through what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, because that really impacts everybody in this room. So if we start looking at where we are as a region, you know, we've had a lot of dynamic shifts, right? We've had economic growth, we've had changing markets that demands. And when we start thinking about all of that, transportation becomes a big piece of that. We've got commercial and residential development that's moving the city forward. So what we're going to do is we're going to get into those conversations today. So for anyone that followed, last week we had Senate Leader Phil Berger in Charlotte, and he talked about how Charlotte is the 9th largest state. What I found fascinating is we're actually growing faster than the 2 states ahead of us. So we are on target to be the 7th largest state in just a few years. The Alliance has come out and talked about how our population growth is set to go from 3 million to 4.6 million by 2050. That gives us a good problem, right? That means that our group needs to think about how does development take place in a way that meets those demands of our region, and we're forward thinking when we start looking at infrastructure, commercial development, housing, all those components. So I would love for each of you, if you could just talk about how do you think we're doing? Are we making the right investments? Are we thinking through in the right way how we support that growth?
Sure, I'll get it started. Zach with DPR. I've been 24 years at DPR and 6 years here in Charlotte. And I'm not going to skip by the transportation piece. That is nothing that I know a whole lot about. I'm a contractor. We work in technical building markets, but I've lived in other markets before moving here. In fact, when I moved here in Charlotte in 2018, 42 people a day were moving to Charlotte, right? We're at 117 today. The forecast that was just shared puts us closer to 140 people a day moving to Charlotte as we move to 2050, right? I think in our business, that growth is a good thing in terms of projects and what we want to go and do. But if we're not serious and we don't align around some outcomes for Charlotte, that growth is going to be really hard to maintain, or at least maintain in the lifestyle that I certainly love here. And I think most of you, it's the reason you're here for all the things that were shared on the panels before. And I think the through line, I think that'll connect these 3 panels, which I think is really awesome. It's part of the DNA in our culture at DPR is relationships trump all. And so I think thinking about, not a big election year, having a referendum on the bill or on the, in November to go and actually increase tax, to go invest in light rail, to invest in roads, to invest in our bus infrastructure, I think is a really, really important piece. And if we skip by that too quickly, I really worry about what we're sitting here talking about 10 years from now. We're not going to be able to keep up with what's happening.
Zach's in favor of higher taxes, it sounds like. Yay, higher taxes. No, I'm just kidding. Seriously, though, I agree with him. I think that this is something we want to consider. But let me introduce myself real quick. I'm Wade Miller, the founder of Copper Builders. We're a builder here in Charlotte, and we're kind of a uniquely positioned company. We build all types of housing products. There's really no other builder in Charlotte that does this. We build townhomes, communities, custom homes. We do renovations for people. We build condos. We build apartments. We build basically all the types of housing. And so we are kind of on the front lines with seeing what is coming up. And that's one of the things we'll talk about in a minute is like how the market is shifting to some different asset classes for investors and different places to live for the residents on the ground. So one of the things I wanted to hit on first of all is I'm from Charlotte. I was born in Presbyterian, right over yonder. Okay, I got one buddy over here. Anybody else from Charlotte in the room? All right, we got some people. How about from the Carolinas? Okay, solid. So Zach hit on it that, a lot of people have moved here and a lot of people are moving here. And I think that's a very important thing that we should hit on here in a minute. But let me just get a feel for where everybody is moving from. The Carolinas are kind of in the middle of the country. Who moved here from north of North Carolina? All right, and who moved here from the south of South Carolina? Okay, very interesting and not surprising that a lot of people from the north are coming down. What we see a lot is people come down, they give Florida a try, decide they don't like it, and they come back up here. We call them halfbacks. That's one of our favorite clients. But anyhow, what the real question we're talking about is Charlotte keeping up with this growth? When I was born here, I was born down in near the Arboretum, lived in Raintree. The Arboretum wasn't there. My family, we went out on the land the Arboretum was on, and we cut down our Christmas tree on that land one year. So Charlotte has changed a lot. And if you think about where Charlotte was just 25 years ago, we had no light rail. South End was a place you would never go. There was no Spectrum Center. The Knights played in Fort Mill. And just all of the suburbs were dramatically different. There kind of weren't suburbs. There weren't like these places you would call other communities. So Charlotte has changed a lot, but we also are putting some things in place that are going to help facilitate our growth. And the municipality has adopted a new thing called the UDO, which is a development ordinance, which is guiding us toward a new plan called the 2040 plan, which means we are thinking about our future. It's great. It means we are preparing for it. We're heading in the right direction. There's a lot of issues with both of these documents, but they are both great documents because they're saying we are trying, we're thinking about it, we're planning.
Great. You know what happens when you go last on the panel? You lose all your questions. No, but I'm glad you got everybody kind of in the spirit of participation, because I've got a question in just a second. But William Haygood, managing partner of Boundary Street Advisors. Boundary Street used to be a street in Charlotte, but it is no longer. It was a part of the Brooklyn neighborhood. So we named our company, my business partner Rodney and I, after Boundary Street that used to exist, because we wanted to do things on purpose. So you'll get that as we kind of go through some of our examples. My question for the crowd is, where do you live? So if I say, if you live north or north of Charlotte, let me see a hand. All right, south or south of Charlotte? East or east of Charlotte? Or west of Charlotte? So my point is, we've spent a lot of time in Charlotte developing the south and the north. And as you go around the clock, as you would in Charlotte, we haven't spent a lot of time in the east and the west. And so what I think we can do more of is provide more opportunity to kind of spread Charlotte east and west, and that comes with water and sewer and infrastructure and that sort of thing. And it also comes with you all business leaders, right? So commercial real estate is about where you want to go, where we are meeting these people that are moving to Charlotte where they are. So when you go east and west, things are getting less expensive. So we need to take a shot and take an opportunity to meet those folks with branches, stores, locations. And of course, at Boundary Street, we can help you do that.
Nice plug. Have you heard of the hourglass? That's what we call the north-south thing,
Yeah.
because it's kind of like it's an hourglass shape.
Well, it's time to gain a little weight, go a little out.
I like it.
Well, rolling off that, transportation to get to those places, whether north, south, east, or west, is obviously going to be extremely important. If we can't get people to our buildings, then what are we building for, right? So just to set the stage for those that aren't following this, last week, Senate Bill 145 was officially filed with the North Carolina General Assembly, which will give Mecklenburg a transportation referendum. So that's all the talk you're hearing about the expansions to our roads, the light rail coming in, rapid bus transportation. That is all in that bill. The Alliance has come out in support of that, as of many organizations and leaders within our community. So I would like to hear from the three of you what your thought is around just really what the long-term, if this is going to support the long-term economic growth for Charlotte, and what challenges you think we might face with getting it passed. And maybe, I'll start with you because you're on
Yeah,
the board for the Alliance.
I jumped the gun there with Bobbi Jo, and just for the record, I'm not in general in favor of raising taxes, but that's okay. It was a good. We met this morning outside trying to figure out how to.
I know
get
a
in
really
there.
good tax partner if you need one.
But I think that what I've come to love in the short 6 years I've been here is the sense of community, and you've heard that from others, and you've heard that in terms of how we connect the community in a different way. And without mobility, we can't do that. I graduated from school in Austin, Texas. I went to work in the Houston Medical Center. And if you've been to either one of those locations, they are very hard to get through, even if you know where you're going. I spent 20 years prior to that in Southern California, in San Diego. As a proud member of the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance board, we do emerging economies visits to other sister cities to go learn from, hey, how have these cities grown? How have they worked through some of these challenges? And I think the thing that's been loudest in my head, besides the connections and experience we have when we're on those trips, is the fact that there was not enough alignment, fortitude, and relationship building to go actually pass smart growth sort of policy. And you don't get like a second or a third sort of swing at this. And so I think that is what we're talking about. November is not that far away, but we cannot continue to be an emerging place where people want to be. We cannot continue to recruit the companies that we want to have here in Charlotte to build the market for the long term if we don't go think further in the future around transportation.
Agreed. Well said, Zach. I am in favor of this higher tax, by the way, Zach. I'm on your team. Is anybody here from Atlanta? Oh, no. I'm about to make you guys unhappy. Does anybody think that Atlanta has good traffic? Atlanta? Okay, exactly. This is my point. A lot of people would describe Charlotte as a mini Atlanta. I've heard this a number of times. And I think what Zach's talking about is we don't want that to be our reputation, right? And the only way for that to happen is to think ahead. That's what Zach and his team are doing, is they're thinking ahead about what is going to happen. Charlotte is growing. More people are moving here. The only way we're going to have this positive outcome with our traffic and our transportation and connectivity is to think ahead. Does anybody think if we started a road project, like if today we all decided, let's build a road project, who thinks they'd be driving on the road in 5 years from now? Probably not. 10 years from now? Maybe. So that's the point. You've got to be thinking ahead. And that's why these plans are important. That's why front loading these taxes are important, so that we maintain this quality of life, so that Charlotte is a place that people want to keep coming to because our lifestyle remains great.
Yeah, I agree. How we get to that and the kind of political part of that, I won't go into, because like I say at church sometimes, that's not my ministry. I'll just kind of stay over here. But if you think about what this actually does, if you were here before the blue line or get to experience it, think about what this red line does, right? Starts at Camp North End potentially, goes through Old Statesville Road, goes up and end up in Davidson. Right? How more often would you go to Kindred or something in Davidson, which I'd like to go to, I've never been because it's too far, but I would jump on the light rail. You know, people like to stay in their bubbles, right? But the light rail enables you to go other places to steal something from, say, DC. I love it because I can go everywhere on the rail. And if we, to your point, if we ever want to do it like in our lifetime, especially me, we got to start, right? And I just drove in from Virginia yesterday. I'm from Charlotte, born and raised, but I was on a college trip. I drove in and I hit all of the toll roads, and I don't know how much money I spent or how many times they're going to take my picture getting back. But I was trying to avoid traffic, and I'm like, if there was a rail line, this changes the game. This gets people uptown. This does all the things that we want, not only to get out to those cities where small businesses are. Imagine you're a small business owner in Davidson, and all of a sudden, all these people can now get there a lot easier. How would your world be impacted? So we have to look beyond how to get there and think about, if we get there, what it could be.
Yeah, we're building a world-class city here, I think. And what world-class city doesn't have a transportation system like a rail? You know, it's just inevitable. We need to get on it.
I firmly agree. We have a son turning 16 today, so transportation in our house is a very hot topic, especially today. Today specifically, yes, yes. All right, so let's dig in a little bit. William, we had not met prior to this, so I did my homework.
Right.
I got early access to your interview that will be in the book, and some of the phrases you use that stood out to me. You talked about playing through the whistle. You talked about the importance of grind, optimism, communication, commitment. I would really love to hear you talk through just your philosophy, but also how you incorporate bringing everybody in our community into commercial real estate.
Whew, they ain't got that much time. But what I'll do is I'll say I kind of got this thing about grind over bravado. And the bravado, when you think of a real estate broker, you think about somebody jumping out of a big car, a bunch of friends, and they got all, they've got their outfits on and they're doing all this thing. And yes, some real estate agents, we're gaudy, we do that. But really what happens in the way that I spend a lot of my time is grinding. And that's going through a lot of research, doing the things that it takes to figure out these developments that are years off, right? And so I like to think about, just the grind and not about the actual bravado of it all. Playing beyond the whistle, I talk about, my business partner and I talk about all the time is, if you know sports and you like, say, basketball, and we're playing and it's the national championship and the refs are against us and, we don't have one of our team members and we're doing all these things, you got to play anyway. Right. And so we could talk about the interest rates. We could talk about the price of construction. We could talk about all the things that are against us in this industry or creating challenges. But all my colleagues in the crowd, we're still doing work. So you have to play beyond the whistle. And so how I kind of wrap that up is one of the things at Boundary Street that we're working on is bringing a grocery store to Statesville Avenue. And that is in a food desert. Right. Thank you. We're still trying. And it's been a long effort, but we're getting close to the end here. And what it is you got to provide the things that people actually need. You've got to ask the community. Gentleman Ron, I believe, talked about asking the customers what they wanted and making them a part of that process. Well, in commercial real estate, you could literally, there's no fair housing. You can literally do what you want to do as a developer, but ask the community. They're the ones that are going to support you. And so we believe it's important not only to do the grind over the bravado, do it anyway, and do it with the people in mind. And we feel like at our company, that's how you win.
Go team.
Nice.
All right, Zach, I'm coming to you if you can follow that one. You ready? Okay. Earlier this month, I was up in DC with NAIOP, and we were meeting with our legislators talking about some of the major issues that are having an impact on commercial real estate. Energy and access to energy is a big issue right now. I don't want to say a talking point. It is an issue right now. And I know you do a lot of work with advanced tech projects around data centers and advanced manufacturing for semiconductors and electric vehicles. Can you talk about the importance of having relationships with the Alliance, organizations like NAIOP, and even Duke when it comes to some of this?
Yeah, and I think that was the common thread I was pulling earlier as well, is these relationships have to exist, right? I think the example of the tension between AI and security and how do you work through those things, the same sort of thing we see right in front of our eyes playing out in front of us in terms of the energy sector. And you have to have partnerships. You have to understand, like, what are the goals? What are Duke's goals? What is the partnership's goals? What is NAIOP's goals? What are most importantly Charlotte's goals and what we're trying to accomplish? And I think what the partnership tries to do is take that beyond Mecklenburg County and look at how does that work with surrounding counties. And believe it or not every county surrounding Mecklenburg wants the same thing. Not all of them want growth. Some of them want to be the place that they grew up in. Others want to go and capitalize on some of that growth. And what we're seeing along the East Coast is a lot of the data center market is moving from what we call Nova, Northern Virginia, down here into the Southeast, here into the Charlotte area, into Northern Georgia. And I think to date, we've done a pretty good job of having sites ready, of being able to forecast power delivery. But we are in no way, shape, or form going to be able to keep up with the demand in the market. Over the last 3 years, we've had a 2 to 3% growth in terms of electrical demand in the marketplace. The last time that happened was in like 2005 to 2007. And that's, I don't think, is really caught up with all the AI conversation we're having, right? We're talking about in healthcare and education. We're talking about in construction. You certainly heard all folks talk about in finance and banking. We are in an arms race. And I think that it's not just about those sorts of partnerships and relationships with the folks that you mentioned, but it's also how do we do this where we're actually producing microgrids on site. We're looking at gas turbines. We're looking at small scale nuclear generation in a way that is very different than the way we've deployed projects, especially in the AI data center and manufacturing world, because most of those plants are not online. They're not consuming where the demand is yet.
Yeah, absolutely agree. All right, last question of the panel. Wade, can you talk about, I think you said, or I had 117, you said 140 plus now, people moving to Charlotte every day?
That's what
the
forecast says.
Okay, so 117 currently, all coming with fluctuating needs, right? That we're starting to see from that an increase in build for rent projects. With that, it's really blurring the line between the traditional multifamily and residential construction. So can you talk about how you're sort of viewing the build for rent and the future of Charlotte's housing market?
Of course. To start off, real estate is a supply and demand problem. It's not very difficult. We have a bunch of people moving here. We need more housing for the people that are coming. If we try and not develop housing, it's just going to cause the housing that is here to become more and more unaffordable because the people are coming. You really can't stop them. And so, as far as the build for rent projects go, this is a new product that's come online. Does everybody know what build for rent is? Briefly, a build for rent is a house or a townhome that is built for the purpose of being a rental rather than being for sale. And it's a pretty interesting asset because it allows people to move into these homes, oftentimes, especially now, at a lower payment than what you might spend on purchasing a house. So it opens up additional living opportunities for more people to live in, detached environment. I would call it. And it's in real estate. I mentioned this earlier. It's a long game. Things take a long time to happen. So if you look around Charlotte, you see a ton of apartments under construction right now, but you don't see a ton of apartments starting right now. And that's because apartments are very difficult to finance right now. There are a lot of pressures on our industry. There's tariffs, there's, labor shortage. There is new requirements about how we build things that cost more and take longer. So all these things are putting constraints on housing, causing housing to be more difficult to produce. And that's going to lead to higher costs. So build for rent is one of these opportunities that's come into the market as another way to provide housing for people that kind of solve some of these issues. I hope regulations change that allow us to build more affordably. But for now, this is one of the good solutions for the situation. So we've found it very successful. I think a lot of people are looking at that as a place to live rather than an apartment. And so a lot of apartment developers are leaning into this space as well.
Well, when we first moved here, I used to say Charlotte was the best kept secret. And I think long since then, the secret has been out if you just look at how fast we are growing. But that puts a lot of pressure on our commercial real estate community and our infrastructure and those components. But with leaders like the three of you, I feel very excited about where our market's going and where we are going to end up in the next few years. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.